5 years ago, I was a full-time graduate civil engineer. Today, I work with some of the biggest names on YouTube and produce content full-time. In this video, I'm going to explain how I did it. So let's start with the big one. Why did I leave engineering and how did I land my first job in content? The year is 2019. I've just left university with a first class degree in civil engineering. I've started my graduate job in water treatment as a civil engineer and things were going pretty well. I'm learning a little bit here and there. I'm getting paid a nice amount. I get my own company van and I'm going to sites all over England. But no matter how much I lied to myself, I knew this wasn't my passion. Now, there's one thing you need to understand. I was consuming content in 2010, 11, 12, the same way people are consuming content now. I was absolutely obsessed with everything YouTube. Throughout school, all I'd watch was Timothy De La Ghetto, Kev Jumba, FouseyTube, The Hodge Twins, Elliot Hulse, KSI, Cal Freezy, and so many other names. And you can tell just from these 7 that I've listed so far, how many different niches I was tapped into. We've got daily vlog content. We've got guys who just pick up the camera and talk to it. We've got fitness YouTubers. We've got self-improvement, we've got gaming. I was consuming all kinds of content. And I always wanted to be a YouTuber, but some of you might know I was extremely overweight, so I never really picked up the camera. Until 2019, I started a podcast with my friend whilst working as a full-time civil engineer. This podcast was called the H Squared Podcast. Obviously, my name is Hussein, his name is Hader. It made sense. And our YouTube did okay. It started picking up slowly. And me and Hader had a good dynamic where he was in charge of the strategy of the podcast, the business side of the podcast, and I was in charge of the creative direction of the podcast. And I didn't know at the time, but I was essentially a producer. I was thinking of what we talk about, segments, branding, social media, YouTube strategy, titles, thumbnails. I was doing it all. And now we're approaching 2020 and TikTok around this time started creeping up, but it was still extremely new. But we thought, you know what? Let's jump on it. Let's see what happens. Now, again, I was in charge of all of this. So I would watch our own podcasts. I'd clip up what I thought were the best bits. I'd edit them myself and I'd upload them myself. And through doing this, I was picking up key skills that would aid me in the next 5 years. And suddenly our clips started taking off. We started getting some traction and we grew to 75,000 followers on TikTok. Now, this was huge. Me and my friend had no previous experience online. We didn't have a big following and we weren't known creators. We weren't known at all. But we grew the TikTok page to 75,000 and the YouTube to over 10,000. And it made me think. You remember all that stuff I used to watch, all the content I used to consume and did consume for 10, 15 years, maybe I know what I'm doing here. Now, we all know what happened in 2020 and everything pretty much closed down. Work as a civil engineer was terrible. Sites were being shut down, which I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really care about because I hated going on site. And there was nothing much for me to do in the office. I was getting pretty frustrated. But I stayed patient and I kept going whilst obviously doing the podcast. But I did raise the issue with my company that I don't feel like I'm progressing. I don't feel like I'm learning much. Like, you're not giving me tasks that are improving my knowledge. And then suddenly, it's 2021. A year has just flown by of me doing the bare minimum at work. But like I said, I'm getting paid a decent amount. And then I'm left with the dilemma. Do I stick or do I leave? But then I thought about it. If I leave, do I want to go to another engineering job? Not really. I wasn't really enjoying it. I knew that I wanted to be involved in content, social media somehow. And I was so determined to making it happen. So in March 2021, I made the decision to leave my job as a graduate civil engineer with no backup or any job lined up. I took the jump. And don't get me wrong, for that first week or two, I was thinking, what the hell have I done? But I made a social media / content specific CV and I started spamming it out. Now, this is where your network is super crucial. My friend Mert, shout out Mert every single time. At this stage, I had known Mert for about a year or two, but we always got along. And he was big in the gaming content scene. He was an amazing editor and worked for a big, massive esports company called Fnatic. If you don't know what esports is, it's essentially competitive gaming. There are tons of different teams and they all compete in different games, and Fnatic was a household name. So I just reached out. I said, Mert, what are you saying, bro? How do I get into this industry? And so he gives me a few pointers, tells me to learn how to edit a little bit as well. But critically, he mentions that there's a job at Fnatic for a social media intern. I don't think you are hearing. Intern. So I just went from a civil engineering graduate earning decent money to having to start all over again as a social media intern. How do I explain this to my parents? That's what I was thinking. I wasn't even thinking whether or not I'm going to take it, the money, all those years wasted at university. I didn't care. I was so eager to get into this industry that I said by any means. So I told Mert, I'm going to submit an application, put in a word for me, but obviously it's not up to him. But this is, again, shout out Mert, man. I remember at the time he was just trying so hard to get me in because he knew I had potential and he also knew that me and him together working, that'd be deadly. So as well as submitting other applications, I submitted my application to Fnatic. A week or two go by and I get that email. Fnatic liked my application and I've passed stage 1. Amazing. I think I've got the job. Only to read the email and find out there's 2 stages left. So stage 1 was the application. Stage 2 is a task that they're going to give me. And stage 3 was a phone interview. So I get assigned the tasks. I send it back thinking, I'm an absolute genius. I feel like Picasso and Quentin Tarantino in one. Now I say this because I've still got the videos I submitted for the challenge. And looking at them now, I absolutely cringe. There are about 1,000 things wrong with them.
Every day, I feel like I love this game. I love this game. I love this game.
It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
But that didn't matter at the time. The idea was good, and so they saw potential in me, and so I progressed to stage 3. Now before you guys say, oh, Mert's the reason you got the job, and look, I can't get a job because I don't know anyone in the industry. Just before my interview with Fnatic, I received an offer from another company. And so a company called Jellyfish reached out to hire me as their social media manager. Now if you don't know who Jellyfish are, essentially they're a social media agency. They have some of the biggest content creators in the world signed to them, and essentially they hire social media managers like me to manage multiple clients at once. This was a completely remote job, and again, a job I got all by myself. So I had that on the table, and I've got my interview with Fnatic. The interview was conducted over a phone call, and again, looking back, some of the answers I gave, I'm just happy I'm a likable guy. That's what I'm going to say. But again, that proves to you don't need to be the final product. They knew they were hiring an intern. I'm not going to be perfect. All they needed to see was the right mindset and determination, which I think I gave them. Because just a few days later, I received an offer from Fnatic. So now, less than a month after leaving my job as a full-time graduate civil engineer, I've got an offer from Jellyfish and I've got an offer from Fnatic. Which one do I take? And so, as you can probably tell, I joined Fnatic. The main reasons being the opportunity to work with my friend Mert, who was really experienced in socials, and also Fnatic is a huge name in the industry, so I wanted my portfolio to start off with a bang. And so I joined Fnatic as their social media intern, specifically focusing on TikTok. Now just to give a bit of context, like I mentioned to you, Fnatic was a huge name. The Instagram at the time, I believe, had north of 300,000 followers, but their TikTok was on 40,000 followers. The only two people working on the TikTok at the time were me and Mert. So I was introduced to a content calendar, social media strategy, working with editors, working with graphic designers, idea generating, keeping up with the latest trends, actually producing and filming content ourselves, and much more. This was my first job in the industry. Now I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't care at all about esports. And a lot of you might be thinking this is a negative, but in my eyes, this was a positive, because this is where I learned how to put myself in the viewer's position. Everyone at Fnatic was thinking esports ideas, what can we do around esports? Whereas when I came in, I was thinking of ideas that were more general. What does a day in the life of a gamer look like? What does a Fnatic HQ look like? Which esports team has the best logo? These 3 ideas alone got us millions of views on social media. Why? Because I came up with content that would work regardless of whether you watched esports or you didn't. And of course, whenever we got the opportunity to work with Fnatic talent, which by the way was about once a month, we would bulk record a bunch of ideas and roll them out slowly. We were near enough uploading daily on TikTok. And so you're probably thinking, what was the result of all this? Well, like I told you, when I started, Fnatic was on 40,000 TikTok followers. By February 2022, we had reached 340,000 followers on TikTok. If you struggle with maths, that's plus 300k followers in under a year. It's pretty impressive. So now I was assured I am good at what I do. I believed I was good, but now I've got an opportunity. I'm working full time in this industry and I proved my worth. But one thing about me is I'm always looking forward. What's next? What's next? I wanted to learn. I wanted to work with as many people as I could. That dopamine rush of just getting millions and millions and millions of views. I wanted to multiply that. I wanted that on a daily basis. So I started looking at content creators that I watch personally, that I know of. And like I told you, I've been invested in content for years. And one of the biggest shows to come out the UK on YouTube was Gasworks. So I've always looked up to Poet and Alhan. And so one day I was scrolling on Instagram, as you do. Alhan had posted a story that he was live on Twitch gaming. Now Alhan wasn't posting anything on his TikTok, let alone a dedicated gaming channel. So I saw there was a need there, and obviously I can provide the value. And this is a lesson for anyone reaching out to someone they want to work with. How can you provide them value? And so I swiped up and got straight to the point. I know he's a busy guy, so I wasn't going to waste his time with a long paragraph. I just swiped up and typed something along the lines of, yo bro, I work for Fnatic, let me help you make gaming clips so you can blow on TikTok. Something like that. And again, everything has a reason. I joined Fnatic because I knew Fnatic was a big name that was respected and that a lot of people in the industry knew. I knew that Alhan knew who Fnatic were and had previously come out to check out the office. And so I put my phone down, watched TV, I've got Instagram notifications off. So about 5 or 10 minutes later, I've opened up Instagram and lo and behold, Alhan has replied. And so this was my opportunity. I didn't want to go back and forth with text messages and long out his life. I wanted to prove that I'm a serious guy and I can add value immediately. So I messaged one of the video editing freelancers that I use at Fnatic. And this guy was reliable and enjoyed working with me, and I enjoyed working with him. And I said, yo bro, I've got a huge potential client waiting. I sent him a clip from Alhan's stream that same night, and I said, just edit this please bro, let's show him what we can do. Within about an hour, I had the edit back. I sent it over to Alhan and I said, yo bro, this is just an example of what I can do. And just like that, Alhan shot back a message, said he loved it and wanted to have a call. So we set up a Zoom call that following day, briefly spoke for about 10 or 15 minutes about TikTok, gaming, his own personal TikTok, just got an understanding of who I am, and then invited me to meet him that same week in person at his office. And so that same week, I had finished up work at Fnatic around 5 o'clock, and I made my way to Alhan's office to finally meet him in person. And again, we spoke, got to know each other for about an hour. I think he was just kind of getting a feel of what kind of person I am. And then he told me his plans. He wants to work with me, but not for a gaming channel. He wanted me to manage his actual TikTok. All his shows that he's ever done, podcast appearances, and the entire catalog of Gasworks are just sitting there, and he's never uploaded a single clip to TikTok. I said, I'll go through all those videos myself. I'll clip them up the way I know will go viral. I'll send them to an editor, and I'll liaise with him myself, and then upload them onto a TikTok. He agreed, and just like that, without even knowing it, I had landed my first client and officially started managing Alhan's TikTok. And again, like clockwork, the views poured in, and so did the followers. Every video I'd post would get hundreds of thousands of views, if not millions. And in just 2 to 3 months of working with Alhan, he had gained over 60,000 followers on TikTok. And not only that, we were talking, he was building a relationship with me, I was building a relationship with him. I'd go into his office to speak to him in person after finishing my day at Fnatic. He saw that I've got a proven eye for content, that I know what I'm doing. And so one of those days where I went in to see Alhan, he randomly asked me if I'd ever consider leaving Fnatic. And of course my response was, if the right opportunity comes along, why not? And from that question alone, I knew that he had something brewing, but I wasn't sure what it was yet. But anyways, about a month goes by and I go to see Alhan in the office again. And this time he reveals it all to me. He's got an idea, a concept, and he's received funding for this idea. The goal was simple: to bridge the gap between gaming and music. How did he want to do it? By creating engaging gaming content with musicians he already knew and had relationships with. This idea had no name, no logo, no branding, no team. It was just Alhan and an idea, and he made me an offer to join him. The position that was offered to me was head of content, but I found myself in a similar situation to around the same time last year. I had an offer from Alhan to join him on his startup, but I had also been approached by the UK ESPN team to lead their TikTok and basically join as a social media manager. Now I'll be completely transparent with you to give you context. Let's say my wage as a graduate civil engineer was here. I was earning good, decent money. When I joined Fnatic, I dropped to here. But with proving myself, I slowly climbed up again, but nowhere near to where I was before. This job at ESPN was offering this much. Do I join a creator who I've looked up to and wants me to spearhead their new idea? Or do I join a household name, a huge company, as a social media manager? And so in March 2022, I made my decision. I took Alhan's offer for a few reasons, but the main ones were I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to go into a company that hasn't even been formed yet, a startup, and build it from the ground up, start at the foundations. Again, it just adds to wanting to prove myself. Also, it was a higher position, head of content compared to social media manager. As head of content, I can build my own team, but not only that, Alhan had told me his plans and some of the rappers that he wanted to get on board, some of the artists, some of the content creators. And I'm going to be working with some huge names. And lastly, I'd be managing the YouTube and Twitch strategy, which then also trickles down into the Instagram and TikTok and general social media strategy. Whereas at ESPN, it would just be TikTok. So I officially became head of content of... It didn't have a name. And that's where the next part comes in, because from March till about September, we were just thinking of ideas and building the brand. Obviously, first of all, the name. The brief was... it needed to be short and simple, and it needed to have a number in it. So I started thinking, and I landed on the number 45 or 45 for multiple reasons. Alhan on Instagram is known as 9p. That's always been his handle. You add 4 and 5 together, you get 9. Half of 9 is also 4.5. But then I looked further into it. I'm a big fan of football, as you guys know. 2 rebellious players have wore the number 45. Balotelli and Alexander Mitrovic. And obviously Alhan's known to be a bit of a rebel, and that's what we wanted to do with the company. We wanted to be rebellious, make noise, disrupt the scene, create chaos, do all of it. And so I presented the idea to Alhan to maybe call it 4.5, which he then took on board and proposed P45. Obviously, with him being called 9p, it just created continuity. And P45 is already a known thing in the UK. When you leave work, you get your P45. And naturally, when you leave work, you sit at home and you play games. So it kind of made sense. Plus, it was just easy to remember. So the name was formed, a logo was created, and brand identity was built. And again, this is the reason I took up this job, because I wanted to be involved in all of this. I can genuinely say I was there from the very beginning, and hopefully oversee it become a household name, which obviously was the goal. So me and Alhan built out a team of of about 4 or 5 people, ironically. It included me, obviously head of content, an intern, Jamie, a videographer and editor, Jack, and someone to look after the live aspect, Travs. And now if you live in the UK, you've probably heard of P45 or you've come across our content. But if not, let me just explain it to you quickly. Essentially, we were live streaming first. So we'd go live on Twitch, take that Twitch content, turn it into YouTube content, and then that YouTube content we turn into Instagram and TikTok content. Now, obviously being head of content, my duty was to come up with the ideas, create a content strategy, come up with formats and weekly shows, find talent that we want to work with, have a say in the ambassadors that we have, and obviously the day-to-day running of the company. And so September 2022, it was officially time to launch. We were extremely secretive on social media leading up to the first ever live stream because we wanted to keep people guessing, like, what is this P45 stuff? And so our first ever live stream was a GTA 5 live stream where Alhan was joined by rappers Potter Paper and Nines in the P45 studio to play online. The concept was simple. They're all friends, you put them in a party together, and hopefully it just creates elite content. And it did. We started off with a bang and we just kept going and going and going. Next, I had the idea to do a FIFA series. This was something that would be consecutively once or twice a week, which again, we'd live stream and then upload to YouTube. And I only had one person in mind for this, one of my favorite content creators in the UK, Lippy Lickshot. Obviously, some of you might know him from Filthy Fellas, but Lippy, he's hilarious. And I knew him playing games was a match made in heaven, especially FIFA, with him being a football man. So I invited him to the studio, we had a conversation, onboarded him as an ambassador, official P45 ambassador, and the FIFA series Lippy Licks Shots was born. And yes, I came up with the name. Now, this was probably my favorite series on the channel. Every week this guy would come in and play games. I would die of laughter. And obviously from the success of that, we started other series with Lippy. So we gave him his own live stream and Discord chat where people would send in stuff for him to react to. We started up music reaction streams whenever an artist would drop an album. And obviously that created the iconic meme.
Why is it already cold? And nothing ain't even happened yet. Am I begging it? I'm begging it. I'm begging it. But that sounded cold already.
And we started another series where Lippy would just play horror games. Now that was set in stone. Every single week you're going to see these types of streams. But also we did bigger streams on more special occasions. For example, for the World Cup 2022, I came up with the idea to create a FIFA tournament. I proposed it to Alhan and he thought Heady One would be the perfect person for it. And one of Heady One's best known songs is actually called Golden Boot. So Heady One's Golden Boot tournament was born. This was essentially a FIFA tournament with Heady and his mates. They could only use teams competing in the World Cup, and we had Lippy hosting it in front of a green screen, but we had a phone line open to members of the public who were watching the stream who wanted to call in and just say whatever they wanted to. And this was one of the best decisions because obviously another famous clip was made from this.
I have no common sense, so you know it's a must. Yeah. Cool up my line.
And obviously we took down those streams, cut them up, uploaded them onto YouTube where they performed really well, and obviously the social clips absolutely flew. And it's safe to say every social clip we were uploading was basically getting crazy numbers. And again, we did some amazing stuff. We even done an activation with 2K for their new WWE title, and the WWE actually have a center here in London, and we came up with an idea to do a tag team championship fight. The build-up was exactly the same, the graphics was exactly the same, there was a storyline to it, but when they got into the ring, a gaming setup and a TV was waiting for them. And 2K loved it so much, we did another activation for their golf title, PGA. We also had Potter Paper come into the studio and create content, and obviously I had to think of an idea. What could we do with Potter Paper? Potter Paper plays Harry Potter. Simple but effective. Till now, that's one of the most viewed videos on the channel. And also in late 2020, something significant happened. I created my football podcast along with my friend Jad, Barra Brothers. And I've always loved football. Me and my friend Jad have great on-screen chemistry, so it was a no-brainer. Let's just try it. And so literally 2 to 3 months in of doing Barra Brothers, we received recognition from the biggest football podcast in the UK. I'm talking the boys on SDS, I'm talking Filthy Fellas, Adam McCullough from the club, shout out Adam McCullough always, and even ex-professionals like Rio Ferdinand. So obviously this was encouraging. I'm like, okay, cool, I've got something good here. And again, going into 2023, everything at P45 just kept going up and up and up. Our TikTok followers were around 80,000, Instagram was like 30,000, I don't even remember. And like I said, P45 videos are absolutely flying at this point. The YouTube is doing really well, we're over 35k. And so I looked into my personal contact and I reached out to the SDS boys to come into the P45 studios and do a FIFA tournament. And now me and some of the boys from SDS had already been chatting, we've gotten along, they've jumped on Barra Brothers, I've seen them outside of filming all together, we've gone out, we've gotten food, etc. So I've got a pretty good relationship with them. So when I invited them down to create some content with P45, it was a no-brainer. And again, this video absolutely flew. The live stream was going crazy, the YouTube video flew, and of course the social clips did amazing. And obviously I forgot to mention throughout this whole video, but I'm also building up my own personal TikTok on the side as well. I'm uploading videos every now and then, I'm creating content, and I built a decent following. It's about 45,000 at this point, 50,000. So I've got that on the side as well. So I'm a pretty busy guy, and I need you guys to understand, P45 was a very small team with a very large output. Like I said, there was only about 4 or 5 of us, but we were doing about 2-3 streams a week. We had these bigger concepts, these bigger ideas that we do about once a month or so. We're basically doing daily uploads on socials, and again, we're uploading on YouTube about 2-3 times a week as well. There's a lot happening for such a small team. So fast forward now until about November 2023, and I'd always have these normal catch-ups with Alhan. So we went for a walk, had a little chat, asked me how things were at P45, and we were just coming off our best month content-wise. We had the highest impressions ever on Instagram. Our TikTok views were crazy for that month. Lippy himself had created about 4 or 5 viral moments in that month. We had 2 rapper appearances on P45. Everything was great. But at this point, Alhan wasn't really involved in the company as much as he was in the beginning stages. Throughout 2023, he had other projects and other things he was doing. So like I said, it was basically me and the team running P45 for a while, which I completely understand. He's a busy guy. So obviously we have that catch up. I tell him everything is going great. But then he breaks some news to me. Unfortunately, he wants to stop P45. He said the business model, the way it was set up, it just wasn't making enough money. And I guess in his mind, a year and a half in, he thought it would be this huge thing, which I told him obviously was a bit unrealistic. It's a brand new company in a brand new scene, a brand new market. Like, guys, I need you to understand. At this moment, no one was really doing what we were doing. Like, P45 felt like my baby. It felt like I had built this thing from the ground up, and I didn't want to just let it go like that. So naturally, I fought my corner, but I also stayed respectful, and I understood. Like, if this is meant to be, it's meant to be. It is what it is, you know. I told Alhan, thank you for the opportunity. I would love to keep going. I would love to keep pushing this further and further because I think we're growing at a rapid rate at this point. But ultimately, it's his decision. If he wants P45 to stop operating, that's his call. And so he stayed adamant, and P45, just like that, was no longer. And it's annoying because I've seen the growth of live streaming content since then. And I always think, what if P45 kept going? But like I said, I trust in the plan of God. So yeah, going into 2024, I was no longer head of content of P45. And obviously everyone else had left as well, except Jamie, who was the intern, who still works with Alhan till now on other projects. So from January 2024 until about July 2024, I was just freelance. And don't get me wrong, this part of my life was amazing. I started offering my production services on a freelance basis, and I worked with people like Emizian. We filmed some videos for him here in the UK, and he liked them and wanted me to edit some videos about going abroad potentially. So I came up with a whole Egypt series for him, planned it all out, done the logistics, obviously planned the whole video, the title, the thumbnails, etc. And working with him was an amazing experience. One of my favorite TikTokers, I'll always say that. I also worked with another football podcast who had just started. They had no social strategy. They were uploading on social media, but only getting a few thousand views here and there. But then I came in, developed a new social strategy, developed a new editing guideline, started editing and uploading the videos myself. And obviously the proof is in the pudding. You can go and check their socials. The podcast is called Heroes and Humans of Football. Unfortunately, they've stopped the podcast. Not gonna lie, it was actually one of my favorite podcasts to watch. So creating clips for them was super simple. And obviously Barra Brothers at this point is doing really well. Again, more and more people are finding out about us. More people within the industry as well. So I just doubled down on that and obviously started pushing harder with my own TikTok content, which at this point I think I was about like near 60,000 followers. But then in July, I get a call. The call was from the Fellas Studios. Now, if you don't know what the Fellas Studios are, they are one of the biggest podcast production companies in the UK, and they're owned by Cal Freezy, who you might remember is one of the people I used to watch growing up. I've even got a picture with Cal Freezy back in 2013. He attended the Man United Wigan, I think, Community Shield game, and I saw that he was attending, and so I made a mission to go and find him and take a picture with him and Tobias Gaming. If you know, you know. But anyways, the Fellas Studios produce podcasts like The Club, Pitchside, Saving Grace, The Fellas podcast, obviously with Cal Freezy and Chip, Chloe versus the World, and a bunch of other podcasts. And the reason for their call was because one of the biggest podcasts to come out of the UK was coming back. Waffling with Joe Weller, Theo Baker and Luke Martin was making a return, but this time they signed with the Fellas. And the call was essentially to offer me the job alongside taking over their vlogs as well, because the Fellas Studios also used to produce their own vlogs of like just office day-to-day stuff. And they saw that I had Barra Brothers and that I had my own personal TikTok and that I'm doing well on them and that I'm also good in front of the camera, so they offered me that as well. Now, just to give a little bit of context, earlier that year in January 2024, I applied for a Fellas job, went through the interview process, but ultimately they decided to go with another producer. And to be honest, the show that they were offering at that time wasn't really a show that I was too interested in. So again, this is why I believe in the bigger plan, the bigger picture, because if I had gotten that job, I probably wouldn't be producing Waffling. So anyways, I didn't get that job, but they were really impressed with me in the interview stage. So in March, they reached out again to offer me another producer role, but at this point, I felt like my freelancing was going well and the package they were offering wasn't the most enticing at that time. And so as they say, third time lucky. This time I was really interested in Waffling. I really wanted to be in front of the camera as well to develop my own personality and brand. And listen, the package they were offering again wasn't the most, it wasn't ideal, but we went back and forth a little bit and it got to a stage where I was happy to accept. Plus I was looking at the bigger picture. To be able to put the Fellas Studio on my CV was a good thing. And to work with the likes of Joe Weller, Theo Baker, Luke Martin, producing Waffling, which I knew I could do well, it made sense. Now I don't know why this always happens, but again, another company reached out in a deadline day bid to try and secure my services, but I decided to join the Fellas. And so I became the producer of the Waffling podcast. Now when I joined, Waffling hadn't actually started yet, the return hadn't been announced. So it was a lot of planning, a lot of talking to the boys, filming the return trailer with them as well. And then just like that, the podcast began. Now my role as a producer was obviously to come up with the ideas, create show notes for the boys, manage the Waffling social media, Reddit, community, manage the YouTube, meaning the title, the thumbnail, etc. Overseeing the podcast edit, the social edits, and obviously obviously uploading the video, finding guests and reaching out to them. And obviously when the boys had bigger ideas that they wanted to do a vlog, for example, I'd also be responsible for producing that. And I can genuinely say I loved every second of producing Waffling. The boys were great to work with. I was dying every single day behind the camera. Like, you can hear it in the shows that I produced, you can hear me laughing in the background. And obviously, you know that vlog stuff that I was talking about? Well, we actually went to Edinburgh and filmed a Christmas special. And obviously, whilst all of this is going on, I'm also developing my own personal TikTok, and Barrow Brothers is still growing. And so the producer of the club, Jack, big up Jack, he had to take some time off work, and so they needed some help with production. And it made sense because I already knew Adam McCullough. They asked if I can help out with production, so I did. So I was basically producing Waffling and helping with the production of the club. But Jack was mainly responsible for the success of that. And I started helping out with the club literally like a month into work. So the vlog stuff naturally had to get put to the side. Someone else had to take over. And I can't lie to you, that first month of work was insane. The vlog that I produced done amazingly well, like way higher than the average that they used to get. Filmed the Waffling trailer and obviously met the boys. Played against the Sidemen in a 5-a-side game that obviously went on the vlog and the Side Plus channels. And in my personal life, I also made my first ever appearance on Filthy Fellas. Like I said, Filthy Fellas is one of the biggest football podcasts in the UK. I can genuinely say I've watched nearly every single episode of Filthy Fellas since its conception. Like I told you, I was proper tapped into content from the very beginning. So obviously through working at P45, Alhan knows Poet. Poet used to come into the office. Me and Poet got to know each other. And so I built a personal relationship with him, and Poet was kind enough to invite me onto Filthy Fellas. So life at this point was surreal. Then fast forward to about January. Waffling is doing numbers. We're averaging more than 100k per episode. The club is doing well, and Barrow Brothers is doing well. And crucially, because Barrow Brothers is doing well, we get approached by Goal, one of the biggest football content platforms in the world. They literally have millions of followers. And they reach out to tell us that they love what we're doing, and if we'd be interested in having our very own show covering the Saudi League on Goal's channels. This was absolutely huge, to have our very own show as well. Obviously, we agreed. We had our own branding, we had our own studio, our own set. It was crazy. And so in January, we filmed the very first episode of Yalla SPL, which is still obviously on Goal for those of you who want to watch it. Essentially, it was a monthly show covering the Saudi football in like a roundup format. So yeah, we filmed 2 episodes, one in January, one in February. But the one in January didn't come out until like late Feb. So the big day comes. It's such a proud moment for myself and Jad. All that hard work that we've been putting in has finally paid off. We're about to announce the Yalla SPL show to all our followers. And so in late February 2025, that's exactly what we did. Now, it's fair to say I think I had a very good relationship with every single person in the office. And when the show was announced, not only did I get a lot of love on social media and online, but also got tons of love in person from the boys in the office. So thank you to them. But yeah, people were coming up to me, congratulating me, saying how proud they were, etc. And obviously it meant the world. And I still remember this like it was yesterday. That was on a Tuesday. So Wednesday morning comes around and I'm working from home. I get a message from HR. HR is just one person. So I get a message from HR and they say, hey, can we have a catch up? I said, for sure, no problem. Jumped on a call. And that's when I was basically given an ultimatum. You see, the fellow studio saw it as a conflict of interest that I had my own show, presenting my own show with Goal. And I did tell them, you know, I don't produce for them at all. I literally go there once a month, cover the football and leave. But they came back and said that the SPL could be a potential client, so it could be a conflict of interest there. To which I obviously asked, are they a potential client? Are you speaking to them? And I was told that no, they weren't speaking to them, but they could in the future. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well then anyone is a potential client surely. And also that 2 other producers also create their own content, but they run everything by the fellow studios, and that I'd have to run my own personal TikTok deals and Instagram deals through them as well, which was crazy to me because the 2 other producers they were talking about were both camera facing. They both had their own shows with the fellas, and the 2 shows that they produced, they had a camera on them. Whereas me, I'm just a behind the scenes guy of Waffling. I just produce Waffling. I'm not on camera and I'm not producing the vlog. So, and also you knew I created my own content coming into the fellas. You know, one of the reasons I got hired was because I had Barrow Brothers, because I could present and produce a podcast, and also because I had my own personal TikTok. So obviously I fought my case as well, but I was told that I either had to submit all the details about the Yalla SPL show, which I got told would get rejected and I wouldn't be able to do it, or I leave the fellas studios. And I made a TikTok video about this whole situation literally the very next day, not explaining anything, but just saying that I got given some bad news, I got given an ultimatum, but the moment I got given it, I felt at peace. I felt nothing. I just trusted the process because I believe we all have the best script writer we could ask for. I know him as God. You guys might know him as God, you might know him as a higher power, whatever it is. But I truly believe if this is what God wanted, then I felt at ease. And the way I saw the ultimatum wasn't Yalla SPL or fellow studios. For me, in my eyes, I interpreted it as you either back yourself or you don't. It didn't sit right with me that I had to run everything by them, not just Yalla SPL. I mean, even my appearance on Filthy Fellas, I did that whilst working with the fellow studios. And I explained that surely the appearance on Filthy Fellas was more of a conflict of interest than this. And no one said anything to me about that. And so like I said, when I got given the ultimatum on the call, my mind was already made up straight away. My TikTok was doing doing incredibly well. I think I had just hit 70,000 followers. The Barra Brothers TikTok was doing amazing as well. I had the Yalla SPL show, and I knew that somehow God would provide. I didn't know what was about to follow, but I knew it was the right decision to back myself. And so I said that I've made up my decision, but I will put it in writing tomorrow. Let me just think about it. And so on that Thursday, I sent an email that very morning explaining my decision to leave the Fellas Studios. And it wasn't even a thing of like, oh, you get a month notice, you get a week notice. That Thursday was my last day, which obviously wasn't ideal for the Waffling boys. It wasn't ideal for me. It wasn't ideal for anyone. And I even offered like, guys, let me stay an extra week, just oversee the next Waffling episode because it's a big episode and Waffling comes out on a Sunday. So to give someone 2 days notice or 1 day's notice to work on the edit, to do everything, is a bit unfair. But I got told that nope, it's company policy. I had to leave. And so I did. And I can't explain enough to you how sure I was of myself making that decision. Like, I was full of confidence and belief that whatever is gonna come after this is gonna be beneficial. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't ideal leaving the Fellas Studio. It was a big name, like I said. I was really invested in Waffling and just trying to take it to the absolute pinnacle. And I really got along with the team as well. But like I said, it was God's plan. So I took to my Instagram, I took to Twitter, after of course talking to the boys on the club, the boys on Waffling, the boys in the office. But I basically announced on my social media that I was leaving the Fellas Studio officially. And I got a bunch of messages, a bunch of love, a bunch of support. And crucially, one of the messages that I got off that Instagram story would play a pivotal role in what I'd be doing for the next few months. That message was from Hussein, the producer of SDS. Now, obviously I hadn't been at the Fellas for a long time, so he was a bit surprised as to why I left. But naturally, the situation, it wasn't something that I can explain over text. I said it's easier if I explain it in person. Plus, me and Hasib would draw a link up anyway. Like I said, I already knew Hasib and Faisal the most, just through this whole football social media scene. And we'd often go out, so obviously I hadn't seen Hasib for a long time, so he proposed to link up. But this time, just me and him. Now, usually we link up with Faisal, with my boy Jad, obviously. This time he said just you. So I already knew something was there, but I wasn't sure. So that weekend, I went to see Hasib. We chilled somewhere local, grabbed some food, just spoke. And obviously, if you don't know what SDS is, it's one of the most popular football podcasts in the UK. Forget the UK, probably even in the world. The main host of the podcast, of course, being Sharky, but Hasib kind of runs the behind the scenes of it. He produces the pod. Obviously, he had seen that I just left the Fellas, meaning I'm no longer working with anyone, I'm freelance. So he mentioned that they initially wanted to approach me just before I signed with the Fellas. But obviously, a few days later, they saw a social media post announcing that I was the new producer of Waffling. So to avoid the same thing happening again, he approached me immediately. And he told me the plans at SDS, he told me that Baller League was around the corner. He told me he needed help thinking of new formats or how to improve existing formats. And mentioned that he's always wanted to work with me because, like I said, me and Hasib get on really well. And naturally, I know a few of the boys from the podcast anyways. So obviously, straight away, it made sense. Now, you might be thinking, Hussein, isn't it a conflict of interest in your mind to help produce SDS but then also run Barra Brothers? Well, actually, no. The main reason being is because they're two different podcasts entirely. Two different vibes, two different formats, two different sets of characters. But then also, some formats Barra Brothers couldn't even do even if we wanted to, because we don't have off-screen production. So anyone who produces Barra Brothers is on screen, i.e. me and Jad. Whereas here, there's so much more you can do because you've got the talent on screen, but then you've also got a production team behind the camera. So anyways, we had a good discussion and he said that he's going to run it by Sharky, but he doesn't see why Sharky would say no and that he'd get back to me as soon as possible. And so that next day, I woke up, went for a walk and got a call from Hasib. And on the call, he mentioned that he spoke to Sharky and Sharky loved the idea and that he wanted to meet that next day. So just so you lot get an idea of how that week went. Wednesday, the call with the Fellas where I get the ultimatum. Thursday, I confirmed that I'm leaving the Fellas. Friday, message from Hasib. Saturday, I see Hasib. Sunday, I get on the call with Hasib. Monday, I see Hasib and Sharky to talk about our plans. And like I explained to you, I didn't know any of this was coming when I left the Fellas. But as always, I stayed believing in the greater plan. So anyways, on that Monday, I had a really good talk with Sharky and Hasib. We went through ideas, areas we can improve. Sharky asked for my honest feedback on SDS, which I gave. And so we left that meeting having agreed that I'd join the SDS team on a contract that would last for a few months. But I wouldn't start straight away because I had a trip to Qatar, which again reaffirms why my decision to leave was the right decision. Because that Qatar trip, I was there for just over a week. I released like 14 pieces of content on my TikTok, and that month my TikTok absolutely blew. And I sit here present day on 80,000 followers. So like I said, everything has just been going up and up and up, alhamdulillah. But then not only that, I came back from the Qatar trip and then I got invited to go out to Saudi Arabia to cover 2 derbies for the SPL. So obviously the Yalla SPL show is in collaboration with Goal and the SPL. And so the SPL was watching what we were doing, they loved it, and they invited me and Jed out to create some content out there. Which again, that experience was unbelievable. We were there for 5 days, watched 2 games, saw some of the best footballers the world has to offer. Obviously took a little selfie with Ronaldo and Benzema. And again, it's another reason why I made that decision to not let go of Yalla SPL. So I've gone to Qatar, filmed tons of content, my TikTok is doing well, come back, worked with SDS for a little bit, gone on that little Saudi trip, and then come back to work. And now some of the stuff I've been working on with the SDS boys is redeveloping existing formats. So I'll give you two examples. The first one being Football Mafia. Football Mafia kind of existed on the SDS channel, but it didn't. They had it packaged as a show called Would I Lie to You, where essentially each round 1 to 4 people on the table could be given a false statement, and they kind of had to convince the panel that it's not a false statement. All I propose is that we have one imposter per round, and we change the whole packaging, the thumbnail, the title from Would I Lie to You, which is a lesser known show and doesn't do as well on YouTube as Football Mafia. And obviously the success of that show has been amazing. Another format I helped change slightly was the football draft. So essentially before they would just pick their players, go around in a circle and then come back. Whereas this time, remember I mentioned that we've got off-screen production that can help out. We'd come up with 11 questions. So for each round, 1 question, and we get the panel to write on a whiteboard their answer. The person closest picks first, second closest picks second, third closest picks third, and obviously the person with their answer furthest away from the actual answer picks last. And we'd repeat this for every round. So that's just readjusting existing formats. Now in terms of new formats, obviously having Sharky, who's an Arsenal fan, and Faisal, who's a Real Madrid fan, was something that we had to leverage going into the big quarterfinals of the Champions League this season. So we came up with the face-off. Essentially, we'd sit them down, read some statements, and get the boys to back their corner. And obviously that absolutely flew. Not only that, there's some behind the scenes stuff that I've been working on as well with the team, introducing new equipment to make the editing and filming process much easier, therefore turning around more content, helping them build out a new social strategy with new editing guidelines that'll really maximize the performance of the clips that we're putting out. And obviously in the background, we're working on a lot more content, new formats, potentially introducing a new weekly show, changing existing weekly shows, just doing everything in our power to level SDS up as much as possible. And now in all honesty, I don't know what's going to happen over the next few months. I did join on a contract basis, and obviously I don't want to jump the gun, but everything has been going great. I get along with all the boys. Obviously I knew a few of the boys before I joined the team, but also I knew a few of the boys before this content stuff even existed. So the working chemistry is there, results are there, and everything definitely seems to be going in the right direction. But regardless, I think I've proven to you in this video time and time again throughout my whole journey, whatever is written in my script, I have 100% faith in. So if I stay with the SDS team, great. And if not, then there must be something better for me and for them. And so that brings me to my final point. What's next? The truth is, I don't know. But also, the truth is, I don't care. I think I've proven to you time and time again throughout this video that I trust the bigger picture. I trust the plan of my script writer, as should you. Now, do I have aspirations? 100%. I have ideas of what I want to do in the future. Within production alone, I'd love to continue working with SDS. I'd love to continue working in the podcasting space, especially football. And obviously, I love working with the SDS team. Truly, to be working with a team that I genuinely get along with, that I can call my genuine friends, it really is a blessing, and I'm fully aware that I'm in a position of privilege. All achieved through hard work, of course. I still want to continue to grow Barrow Brothers and take that to the absolute top, because I genuinely think we've got something special there. You know, I genuinely feel like we're so different to other football podcasts. So please, if you haven't watched Barrow Brothers, do go and check it out. I'm also a very ambitious guy when it comes to my own personal content, so my TikTok is definitely something I'm going to push forward with. I've already got a bunch of ideas for my TikTok, so it's just about executing them. This YouTube channel is also something I want to try my absolute best with. I want to give it my all. I want to stay consistent with it. I'm going to stay recording content, editing it myself, just going through the hard work myself. Again, for this YouTube page, I've got a bunch of ideas as well. So please, if you've come from the last video, if you've come from this video, it would mean the absolute world to me if you could subscribe, because again, I want to give this my all. So like I said, TikTok, YouTube, I'm thinking to also start another YouTube channel for my football content. Again, guys, I have a lot of ideas. And of course, in my professional life, I'm lucky enough to have built a really good network, obviously backed with really impressive results, whether it be on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitch, whatever it is. I've been exposed to all kinds of platforms. I've gotten all kinds of results, and that's something I planned out from the very beginning. I'm so grateful that I've managed to pull it off. So guys, if you're going to take anything from this video, is to trust your script and back yourself. Always back yourself. If you have any particular questions or requests for future videos, please leave them in the comments below. I'd really appreciate it if you left a like on this video. Like I said, subscribe. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.